Happy Veterans Day to all vets. Have a good day, make it a good day, and thank God you're still here. And there's a reason you're still here. We left off, I believe we lived on a street called Hall Street. The whole story about the lady allowing us to live there until we got on our feet. Well, the process of getting on our feet for me was, what am I going to do to make some money to feed the family? So I bought a little trailer for hauling trash, for doing anything, any kind of job, cutting trees, hauling people's trash. They want to take it to the dump, landscaping, sprinkler system repairs, any kind of thing I could do to bring in money. Well, that was at least feeding us. We were going along, but it wasn't getting us anywhere. And one day my wife received a phone call, and I'll let her take it from here.
Well, this is so funny, the cycle. From going back to Mama Lori's to the Midwest, to the coast, back to Hall Street, my parents in between helping us in all these different things. And so we get a call. And I mentioned last time Tulare County was under a horrific unemployment, 25% up crisis. And being an ag area, a lot of farm workers, a lot of this, a lot of that, drought, just whatever was going on. And we got this call. And she said, honey, it would have nothing to do with cooking, nothing to do with the kitchen. If you kids could come back here, I could hire Dennis. And she had named an hourly wage that was at least $2 or $3 above the minimum California wage, which that was like huge for us. And she said, I need him to paint the whole inside of the Salina Inn, the rooms in the Salina Inn. And she said, I'll put you kids.
And how many rooms were that? A lot.
Oh,
a lot.
Tons.
Hundreds.
Yeah, a lot.
Hundreds.
And so she said that we could live at the motel, which to us, I knew I could make whatever work. And we had very fond memories of her. And so we said, hey, let's do that. And recently.
Let me stop you. Didn't she offer you a little part-time desk work in the inn? Yes.
When I got back there, yeah. Yeah, there were several things we did. We were always looking, even though usually it had to be something where, for Dennis, had to be something that he was allowed to walk away from, do his own thing, be his own boss, work alone. Any veteran who's listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about. We just talked to one last night for an hour and a half and what he's been through. And he's still being counseled from Vietnam and what he's going through in his head. But anyway, so the funny thing was we had made the plans that we were going to take a train. Planes, trains, and automobiles. We were going to take a train from California, Los Angeles, California, to... I think they actually ended in Wichita. It couldn't go into the city that she was in. And then Lori was going to have someone pick us up there at the train station, bring us up to the motel. So Miss Optimist here, I'm always trying to make the best of everything. And I thought, Amtrak. They show you, they tell you, take a train, take a wine car, do this, do that. They make it just sound like, you're just going to have the best time. Well, the reality is we give our little tiny dog Goliath to my father and mother, who say that they're going to put him on an airplane after we get there. So that was number one. We got our tiny little dog taken care of. Next thing is, remember, we now have 3 children, not 2, but the brand new baby, Israel, was teething. And the person...
We didn't have a car either.
We didn't have a car. We had given our car away to a person who didn't have a car. And we had been walking around town. We literally walked across town to do our laundry at a laundromat. We thought it was the most normal thing because we were givers and we loved people. And as long as we had legs to walk, we were fine. So here we were downsizing. We're heading that direction. We gave our car away. The person who was supposed to give us a ride to the train station backed out like less than 24 hours. So there I am on the phone with my father. Dad, can you please give us a ride to the Los Angeles train station? Yes. So he piles into his car, Dennis, myself, our 3 children, pillows, I think we had 2 suitcases and a stroller. And Amtrak had said, don't worry about the baby. We don't charge babies. So I thought they were going to give us a seat for the baby free of charge.
With a car seat.
Right. And then the only other thing I had begged them, I said, please make sure we're not in a smoking car, because we're both ex-smokers and we're highly, highly allergic, can't stand it. I go into like puking, nauseous. It's bad. So we arrive at the train station. Don't know if you remember the details of this, but it's really funny. We arrive at the train station, telling my dad goodbye. We're waving goodbye. We go up into this car, and we realize pretty quickly there that we only have 4 seats, not 5. So I now have a baby and a baby carrier in my feet, and the space in the train, in the car we were in, is like on the cheap seats on an airplane. It was like barely for your legs.
How old were the babies?
Gosh. Isaac was 6. Isaiah was 4.
Okay.
4.5. And then the baby is like maybe 8, not even 18 months, not walking.
Now, he was a baby. That's why
baby,
I don't think they were that
maybe
old.
about 9 months.
I think they were like 2 years old.
But anyway, so it was really funny because we get in the car and we realize pretty quickly they have assigned us the bar car. This is Amtrak. Said, you looked at the train, the back half is the bar. We asked for non-smoking. So they counted the first 8 rows of seats, and we were in the last row, open car, and anybody from seat 9 on could smoke.
And we didn't drink, so the bar.
And we didn't drink, we didn't smoke. So to add to that, poor little Israel would not stop crying. He cried. We got the train before noon. By midnight that night, I thought I was going to go out of my mind. This was a long train ride.
Teething.
He was teething, and no matter how I walked him, no matter how I passed him off to you, he absolutely, and Isaiah and Isaac were in their own little seats, and I kept passing them games up. They were fine. They're good. They're hanging in there. And so finally, the story of all stories, 100% true. Finally, the bar car, we hear drunks. The smoke is horrific. They're carrying on.
Kids were sleeping.
Finally, and that helped our little Israel not be able, the teething baby, the crying baby. Here we're in a bar car where people are being loud and all that. Finally, about 1 o'clock in the morning, it's quieting down. We fall asleep. And then the great event, right behind me, we hear out of nowhere, screaming, this guy's peeing all over me.
All over everybody.
And
he just stood up and started peeing all over everybody.
Well, what? God bless
they were
the
yelling,
drunks.
put that thing back in your pants.
Get the porter! Get the porter!
This guy's squirting. I mean, everybody. And they, dude, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm in the bath. I'm in the restroom. No, dude, you're not in the restroom. You're peeing all over everybody.
She's sobbing. We're hearing this.
Call
this
the
woman
porters.
is sobbing.
Call the porters.
And we see the guy, they get him out. They take this man away and they take her away and they're taking her to try and clean her up. And it was just, let's just say, it did not fit the television ads they had at the time.
Oh my God.
We were trying to believe all this was a great adventure and make the best of it. But I tell you what, that left, we haven't been on a train since. So that was our fun going back to the Salina Inn in Kansas. So we finally get there, and we get there, I believe it was like late at night, and Lori has a worker that she had pick us up. And we end up at the Salina Inn, and she takes me and our new home to be for a season until we saved up enough money to get a little house. We were in a room with 2 queen beds, and in the back area where you could hang your clothes, there actually was a little area that had a little sink, and up above the clothes area, there was actually a place you could put groceries, and then the bathroom is behind a separate door. So we decided that that was going to be our home for the next however many months or whatever we did there. And so then Dennis started painting rooms, and she offered me to work a little bit in the office. And I ended up supplementing to that. I took a job as a waitress at a place named Baird's Cafe in Salina, Kansas. And this was a major crossroads back on the interstates. And so the way we worked it out so that we could be with our children is that Dennis would go to work like probably about, I don't know, 9 in the morning or whatever. And you would
5.
Okay, well, whatever time you went to work early in the morning, but you were done by 4, and I would have a dinner cooked. And then I would go on the 5 o'clock night shift as the waitress, and I would come home at 2 in the morning, so filled with smoke. They weren't like progressive. Some of them were like, smoking wasn't as cool as long in California, and they were worried about health and all this, but the Midwest seemed to be way behind in that particular habit. And so here I would come home from this cafe. Oh my gosh, I would come home absolutely covered in smoke, and I would just go straight to the shower. Everybody was asleep in the room. I'd pour my tips out on the table, and thank God, oh my goodness, back in the day, I think the restaurants didn't pay anything. They didn't even have to pay minimum wage. It was like $1 an hour or something for your basics, and then your tips. But I was getting $60, $70 a night and in tips, so that covered our food, covered whatever. And Lori let us use her car while we were there. And then I don't know if there's anything you want to share about painting the rooms and how you liked it. Frustrating.
I'd go into these rooms, and I'd have to strip the entire bathroom, take down all the mirrors, blah, blah, blah. And I painted the entire bathroom and the entire motel room and furniture in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was day after day after day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a whole lot of painting. And so I listened to a whole lot of tapes and just painted and painted and painted.
Mm-hmm.
And then
we decided we wanted to get in our own home. So we went house looking to rent a house, and we found the most beautiful little home that was 2-story on a street where literally it looked like something out of It's a Wonderful Life. The trees crossed over the street, and we literally went to an auction to put things in the house. I'd never been to an auction before. We went to an auction, and we bid on things that we wanted for like next to nothing and got them. And so here we had just gotten settled in this house, and Lori had said, now that you kids are out in the house and you're not right here, I kind of need you to get your own car. And Dennis and I, who I had laughed about our finances and no clue and this and that, and remember we'd come from making big bucks. And he was like, let's go down to a car lot and we'll just tell him this and that. And I was really scared to get in debt because we'd already been there once. And so one day he went to work, and I thought, I'm not doing this. And I looked in, and I had this little envelope where I kept our money. And we had $500, maybe 20 or 40 extra, but I had $500. And I said, if we need a car, we're going to find one for $500. If it's running, that's what I'm going to do, because I don't want to get in debt and feel that weight. And so sure enough, I look in the paper, and this little old couple, all this time Dennis is working, he's got no clue. He thinks we're going to go on a lot and buy a nice car somehow. And so I went ahead and I bought the car while you were at work. This little old couple came driving up in the ugliest car you have ever. Can you attest to that? We dubbed it the California Raisin. It was a Plymouth Scamp. It was a dark, dark maroon, and because of the snow seasons back there, it literally had holes in
was it 1964 or something?
Oh, it was old as that, our Plymouth Scamp, and it had big holes along the wheel wells on the top.
Because of the snow.
Because of the snow, it had eaten through, and this was a little elderly couple. But it had been a government car before they bought it, and it had pretty low miles, and it seemed to run great. So they were willing to take the $500 cash for the car. And I decided I was going to go surprise you.
I remember I was landscaping the front of this Salina Inn.
I think the painting had stopped. Yeah.
Or it was in between.
Yeah.
She just kept me working around there, whatever. So I went, and I can remember that day lifting them freaking big old heavy railroad ties, because we got them free. We found them on the railroad track and got a ton of them. And you can landscape and line planters and stuff with it. So I remember I was working hard, man. I was tired lifting, working, making it beautiful out there, though. Lori really loved it. And this car comes driving up. And I looked up, had no idea it was Diana. So she comes to where I was. I got a new car. I bought us a new car. And I go,
the look on your face.
Where is it? And she pointed to the one that I saw pull up. And I go, where did you get that piece of crap, number one?
Pride breaker.
And how much did you pay for it, number two? And how did it get here? How does it run? And surprisingly, that thing, it was a Flathead 6 back in the day. Man, that thing ran like a sewing machine. It ran beautiful. But it was one of the ugliest things I ever saw in my entire life. It had dance holes from the snow and the rust. And it would need a ton of body work and all this stuff. But the more I looked around at it, I thought, I don't care how it looks. The sucker runs good. And it beats, using someone else's car. So I told her, well, how much did you pay for it? $500. I said, $500?
My waitress tips.
$500? I said, dang, you did
Let me
good.
figure this out.
This thing runs. Shoot 'em.
It had to be about 1988 because Israel was born in 86. So this was not.
So I had to make her feel good, I said, oh, you did good. Great deal. Oh, sucker run. Oh, look at that interior. The radio works. The heater. Oh, Jesus, what a deal. Oh, my God. We have stories to tell about this little car that we fell in love with because it was kind of like us, wore out, but still run.
Yeah.
And so it turned out really cool. I put plugs in it, and every small thing you do, I put new hoses on it and checked out all the things that might conk out. Because did we know then we were going back?
No.
Okay, keep going.
No. Well, no, I was just, we went ahead and we made friends. We had amazing times. Dennis and I got to visit Greg again, Lori's son, and their family. I was having interesting times at the restaurant, to say the least. I will never forget, there was one night where I scared my husband absolutely to death. This was during the time that, it was during the season where they had tornadoes. And this is Tornado Alley. This is like, it's no joke. People actually have places they go hop in the ground and hide in their, whatever you call those things. And so what happened is, I decided, I was so used to getting off in the middle of the night, and I'm wide awake from waitressing. And we had the one night that
I would watch the boys while she was at work, and I can remember I would lock them in a room with me because I knew I was going to fall asleep.
You only had one room.
And these guys were little, and I thought, oh my God, if they get out, no matter what, no telling what they'll get into. So I got to figure out how am I going to watch these guys, and if I happen to conk out, they'll be safe. So I bought tons of toys everywhere and stuff that could crawl over my head and all over me and while I was sleeping, and play and throw balls and hit me in the head and all this stuff. So that's how I watched the kids. I'd lock the door and little 6x8 room and told them, how about it, have fun. I'll see you when I wake up when Mom gets home. So now that I think about that, oh my God, they'd have probably taken our kids away if CPS wouldn't known that. But I didn't do that all the time. It's just when I was really tired. I did it once or twice.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I scared you so bad one night. I decided there were two different times. Once I decided to go shopping. It was 2 a.m. They had a grocery store that was open all night. And I thought, oh, I've got all this tip money and Dennis and the kids are asleep. And why don't I shop now? Then he won't have to worry about it, right? Because he's busy, I'm busy. So I go to the store in the middle of the night, and it was so fun. When I got home, oh my goodness, did I get a talking to, because you were so scared, like, didn't know where you were at. This
I
is not
was so
you didn't carry
mad.
cell phones.
I'd woken up early, and I usually did before she came home, and she didn't come home. I got no phone call, no notice, nothing. 1 hour went by. It's midnight or something by then, or 1 a.m, whatever.
Right.
Another one goes, it's like 2 a.m, and she's young lady. How young were you then? I don't know.
Yeah.
A long time ago. She
Still young.
She was young and, by herself and in a strange town. And I'm thinking, she disappeared. She was not, I was so mad and so worried at the same time. Finally, she like only Diana can do, shows up, bouncing like she does. Her joy and
I had the groceries.
Doing what she does. And I'm going,
It was at Dylan's,
I
was
will,
the name of the grocery
kill
chain.
you. I will kill you. If you ever do that again, I will kill you.
Yeah. So it's scary.
What is wrong with you? I'm sitting home with your kids and you don't even tell me what you're doing? I didn't know if you were kidnapped or what. Anyway, you're still alive for some
So then I
reason.
realized that, this wasn't the days of cell phones where you could just let somebody know where you were at. So then there was another time where we really did have a tornado come through town. I was at work. Dennis was at the house. And because I was at work, they had a phone, and we had a land phone back at the house. And the thing that bothered me the worst, because I was from California, I didn't know what do you do when? And they're saying this thing touched down like 3 miles away and was headed our direction. So I'm looking, and people aren't even like, they're not going under the tables, the restaurant. They're still sitting there eating. And as the weather outside's getting crazier and crazier, I'm like, so when is it? And I called you and you said, yeah, we're fine over here, but are you okay? Yeah. So far, so good. But it was like, I'm looking at the manager. I'm like, so at what time do we take evasive action? What do we, and these Midwesterners, oh my gosh, talk about the opposite of dramatic, right? They're still like, girl, get my coffee, and this and that. And things are starting to go like the trees are like right next to snapping, like serious. And they're like, oh yeah, and these old farmers and stuff. And they're just like, and I asked the manager, I said, do we go in the freezer? How do we make sure we don't lock ourselves in? I mean, I'm making all these contingency plans and they're just oblivious. It's like, it probably won't hit us. And it went by like about 1.5 miles away. And then it was like no big deal. And so I was totally weirded out about that, because everybody thinks everybody from California has nonstop earthquakes, which we don't. And so this was really weird because of being in Tornado Alley. But then the other night I scared you to death. I was working and I had a young man that started to have a stroke. And I had Mama Lori's car. This was actually back before we had moved into our little house. And he was reacting so badly. The manager said, do you want to run him to the hospital? We don't want to wait for an ambulance. So I threw him in the car. And the whole way there, I was just, praying and hoping that he would make it. He had lost his vision. Like his name was Tracy, and he lost his vision. His blood pressure was up. And I'm driving in the middle of the night in somebody else's car. I don't even have my Kansas ID yet. Headed for a hospital I've never been to. And I'm just asking God, don't let this guy die on me, because I'm not going to be able to explain any of this to my husband or anybody else. And we get to the hospital, and long story short, he got checked out and he made it through everything and he was okay. But once I was at the hospital and it was past the time I should have gotten home, I did call and I said, hey, I'm here at the hospital. And that went over real well. I remember you said, you're what? And I said, oh, well, I brought Tracy to the hospital. Well, who's Tracy? Oh, well, he's a guy I work with. Well, why'd you take him to the hospital? Well, he was having a stroke and nobody else seemed to know what to do. So I threw him in the car and we went. And I said, I just pray for him. I was hoping the guy didn't die. But it was like the thing to do. What else
So
would we do?
anyway,
So there was lots of fun while we were back
well, I got tired of this place. I mean, them painting them motels every day was getting old. We had a little playground outside of our motel room for the kids. They had slides and swings, swimming pool. So they were all cool. We always took care of them, make sure they were happy. But I was getting bored, and I said, it was lightning outside and raining. And I said, God, I don't understand this. What's going on here? You bring me out here to this godforsaken freaking place with snow and freezing to death and painting my freaking brains out here. And, I came from a business where we made a lot of money. I gave up all this, whining new Christian kid, whining about everything. And I said, I don't like this. I have to do something else. Because I had painted 100 rooms, and it was boring. It was getting old. Diana would go to work waitressing, and I'd do that. She'd come home. Same routine over and over. So I said, I got to do something. I got to try to do something else. So I told Diana, I said, I think I'm going to try to take a test for the airlines and work for the airlines somewhere. Baggage guy or desk clerk or whatever. I didn't care. I wanted something with benefits, halfway decent money. I was tired of the penny pension and where's this going? It's not going anywhere. Now I have 3 kids and I got to do something. So I told Diana the biggest problem we have is me passing the test, because I hated school, wasn't good at tests. I hated that kind of thing. So she said, you can do it. You can do it. Just try it. Just try it. So I can remember being terrified the night they set us in, like back in high school. Nowhere to cheat. I mean, this wasn't even COVID, and they were spacing it. You can't cheat. Looking over this guy's shoulder, nah, ain't gonna work. How about that guy? Nah, he's way too far away. Ah, crap, I gotta do this myself. So I thought, this means I gotta think here, read this thing. What would you do? That one. And I was shocked more than I've been shocked in my life. I don't know who picked up the results, you or me.
Wait till you hear why.
But I think she said, you passed. What? What do you mean I passed? You tell.
We had been looking in the paper for any kind of job, but Dennis said, we've got to do something. Like when we're in the care industry, I've got to have a trade. I don't even know what I can do, but we've got to do something. And somebody had run an ad saying, we need all these airline people. And if you pass this test, we'll put you in a house. We'll pay for your schooling. We will train you. And even if it's a baggage handler, we'll do the training and we'll take care of everything. And we said, wow, that would fit everything that we need. It did happen to be in the state of Washington on the West Coast. But so Dennis went to the test, and we both were shocked because we had no clue what he did or didn't. And after Vietnam and all that stuff, to know what to expect. And they told him he passed. Well, I didn't find out till later, but here's what happened. He passed, and so we decided, that's it. We're giving notice, and we're going to go back, and we're going to stay at somebody's house for a day or two and then continue on up to Washington.
My mom's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're going to go up there, and we're going to get our funds that they said we qualified for. And we're going to start this new life, and Dennis will actually have a real job. But what I found, well, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So to leave Kansas, we started divesting everything that we had gotten. We gave notice to Lori, and he had finished painting the rooms, and then she started using him for landscaping and paying him for that. But that was coming even to an end. So it was good timing. And so we literally loaded up our little Plymouth Scamp, and he came and picked me up from my last shift at the Spirits Cafe.
Did you tune up on it? Put new plugs, points,
did that everything. Kind of a thing. And so we took off, and we thought maybe we could somehow, it's about 23 hours or whatever. We thought maybe we could drive through between the two of us. But we took off, and about 8 hours in, because my shift had ended 5 or 6 at night, we were both so beaten. We did the thing that nowadays I would never do. We pulled into a rest stop.
But backing up, when you came out of that restaurant, I mean, whatever you call it, where you work, restaurant, the boys were screaming and jumping up and down and clapping. They were so excited. We were going on a trip and going back to where grandmas were, their grandmas and their cousins. And
say hi on the way through.
They were jumping up and down, clapping. Mom was so happy she was off work. And I can remember it was a still, cold night, but the stars were like so,
it was beautiful.
So beautiful and bright and fresh, and we could breathe. And I can remember it just got quiet. Everything just got quiet, and we just enjoyed. We were so exhausted, tired. And I can remember we just drove for hours. And, of course, the babies fell asleep, and we just took a breath thinking we were heading for a new deal,
One more time.
And then I got tired. And I knew she was wiped because she just got off a shift. So I said, we can't keep driving, not with these babies, because I could fall asleep and we're all dead. So I said, what do you want to do? And then...
Well, we slept about 2 or 3 hours at the rest stop, and then we continued on our trip to California. We visited our families for just a day or two and told them that Dennis had passed this test. He'd been accepted at the school. We were going to have finances. And here we were in this $500 car. Now, anybody that's been on the West Coast and knows the road between California, Oregon, and Washington knows that it has unbelievable mountains and grades. And even though this car had been very dependable, and I don't know if the boys would remember this.
No.
But it was hysterical. We would literally start to go up a mountain and water would start coming out from underneath the hood and splashing up on the windshield from the radiator. And
the gauge would go like this. The higher I got, the hotter it got. And so they'd start singing songs and
we think we can.
God, get us up this mountain, and I'm dying. I'm going, if this thing dies here, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Because we're talking 15,000 feet up, snow, blah, blah, blah. Well, it wasn't snowing, but it was cold enough to snow. But that temperature gauge would get all the way to the top, and it seemed like we'd just make it. And then we'd start heading down that hill, and the gauge would go. All I was watching the whole way was the gauge going up and down. Going down, it would go all the way back to, oh, Jesus, we made it. Finally, we came to a gas station because that thing was just really staying overheated. And I can remember limping in there and filling it up with water. And then
it would just barely make it.
From gas
it would barely make it. And
mountain to mountain. It was horrendous.
We still had Goliath. Goliath was with us. And so we make it through this incredible journey, and we pull up to the place that's supposed to be doing our thing. We say, okay. And they said, well, the first thing you need to do before we cut the check is you have to find your housing. And this was on the border of Washington and Oregon. It was actually in Washington, Seattle area, where you were born. I think it was somewhere near the Columbia River or something. But anyway, we started looking for housing. They had laws that because we had 3 boys, not 2, we couldn't share a 1-bedroom and make the best of it. We couldn't share a 2-bedroom. By law, they would allow you no more than 2 children per bedroom.
No dogs.
It's not like where people work stuff out with families.
Couldn't have dogs either.
And the other thing was 99% of the places wouldn't let you have a dog at the time. And even though Goliath was this tiny little thing, I mean, it was like you couldn't have that. So long story short, we looked for almost a week, and we kept looking and we kept looking. And they said, yeah, there's a really bad housing shortage. We checked government housing. We were willing to do whatever we had to do to get our foot in the door for you to be able to do that. And then later, after we just were so dejected, we'd gone back to the Midwest yet again, trying to find a calling, a livelihood, or whatever. And here we were, and everything that they said we qualified for wasn't coming to pass. And then there was a night where we were all in a motel room, and oh my gosh, Isaac got so sick. Our dog got sick. We ended up literally with the dog on an IV. Dennis was sick from the stress.
Dog on an IV.
He was on the IV. Dennis was sick. Isaac acts like he's dying. And he was
Isaac came to me.
Oh, my God.
And he said, this is true. You know, you have to listen sometimes when you're in bad situations to everybody because they may just have the answer. Isaac came to me and he says, Daddy, I want to go home. And I said, what? And he says, I want to go home. And we said, well, where's home, Isaac? And he said, Grandma's house. I want to go home to Grandma's house. So I guess he was so smart that he picked up on our depression, and he probably heard us talking, saying this, you know, what the heck's going on? They said, what we expected. And so I looked at her and I immediately said, you know what? He's right. We need to go. I don't know what we're going to do, but this is obviously a dead end. Doors absolutely closed.
I screamed. I did
doors
not.
Closed everywhere.
I cried.
Yes,
screamed.
Dennis,
I had a fit in the car in front of the kids. I felt like Visalia had vomited us out. I didn't want to take anything from any other family member. And the thought that, once again, pure-hearted, we had tried to find a way for Dennis to earn an income, a job as the head and this and that and all these things. And it was blowing up in our face. And I knew when Isaac said it, I knew that, yeah, we needed to go home. And we ended up, that's where you had mentioned earlier, you said something about your sister Penny. We ended up making a call, and Dennis's sister told us that we could live with her for several weeks. She was in a housing situation where she could only have guests for a couple of weeks. But she said, you can come to my house for several weeks and we'll figure out what to do. But I was just that night in that motel, and as mad as I was, feeling like I just can't believe this. I can tell you, looking back, that there were people we met along the way. There were things that happened that were absolutely, I feel like, were some of the greatest things in our lives and supposed to be. But
all part of the trials.
All part of the growing up. All
I could think of was heading back up the mountains, going back the other way again. Same car, same temperature gauge. All the way back, praying and doing, we're going to lose it. But we made it back to Visalia. And of course, I was thrilled having to live with another relative with 3 kids.
Yeah.
No job.
Yeah.
We made it back, and I was checking. You need a garbage man? You need a dog catcher? What? I had that help wanted, and I was going nuts. I mean, my sister was great. You know, all that wasn't the problem. It was pride, and I just couldn't deal with this. I had to be working. And so I told my wife, let's go for a ride. So threw her in the car, and we were going for a ride. And I said, pull in here. And it was a school for
Good Shepherd Lutheran Homes for developmentally disabled.
Yes. And so she said to me, what are you doing here? And I said, just wait here. And I went in, and I have a nephew named, we call him Champ. His name's David. Just crazy about that little guy. He has Down syndrome. Great little guy. Still living. And they're not supposed to live past a certain age.
There was a day and age where,
back in the day, but he's way over 50 now.
Over 50.
Anyway, great little guy. And I went into the school, didn't know why, what was I doing there, right? And I was just asked the lady, did they need any help? Because we were care providers for years. If I had experience anywhere, it was there. So I thought, well, I could work here during the day with these folks, right? It was a job. It would have been minimum wage, but it was a job. So I go in, I start visiting with all these little guys, little Down syndrome, and they give you 10 times more than you give them. They're just unconditionally
Wow.
They love you to pieces. They don't know who you are. They come up, start hugging you, start talking to you, telling you their life story, and it's just an escape from reality that is so awesome, you know. And so I felt myself back in that world, and all these little people wanted to show me their little pictures they made and all that, and I just witnessed, this is where I belong. I love working with these little folks. My stress levels, you know, they get relaxed around these people, little folks. We call them folks, people, whatever their names are. I would call them by their name if I knew their name, because they're people with great little personalities and little hearts. And so I got back in the car and I go, you're not going to believe this. And she said, what? And I go, we're supposed to go back in the care business. And it didn't have anything to do with working there. But I just had to sense that feel, where do we belong? What am I sensing here? And so I go, we're supposed to be back now. She says, are you crazy? That would mean we need to own a house. To get licensed. You'd have to own a house.
Be fire cleared. Everything you have.
You'd have to have like a ton of money in the bank before they would license you, right? Everything we didn't have.
What?
And she was out of her mind thinking, holy moly, because when we left that business before, I remember we drove a couple states and we stopped and we laid down this field and it was like, holy moly, all the stress left from doing all them folks for all them years. And we looked at each other and we couldn't believe how we did that, right? How do we have the strength to do that? And of course, we realized it wasn't us, it was God. I mean, he gave us the strength to do that and do what we did. But it's like we were covered the whole time and didn't realize how much it had taken out of us till we laid down that field. Well, I could see Diana looking at me like, you don't remember the field? Are you out of your mind? And in fact, I think she said that. And I said, yeah, but here's the deal. Here's what you don't get.
Higher functioning.
We'll get the higher functioning folks. Mm-hmm. The folks that are like grown-ups, they're, you know, adults, older. And they go to programs during the day. So we would have all the folks we had before, it was 24 hours. We care. These would be, they go off to school, blah, blah, blah. They don't have
some things.
Tons of doctor's appointments like the other very infirm
They
folks.
weren't infirmed.
And weren't in wheelchairs and stuff like that. These are like grown adults that would just live in your home, basically, and you would supervise them. So she goes, wow, I never thought about that. So start getting excited. And we go, dang it, how are we going to do this? And so
that's for the next story.
Yeah, it's a long story after that.
But it was, we were literally in his sister's, and there was a period for a week before he found that one that every day we had 2 suits we'd bought when he was going to apply and did his thing with the airlines. And every morning Dennis would get up, put a suit on, and go drive in circles and find absolutely nothing that he could do or that made any sense or that he even wanted to do the application for. And then we went to check on that one group to see if you possibly could get a job there. And all of a sudden he walks out and says, yeah, I think we need to go back in this business. And my mind, since I had taken care of all the technical, all the this, all the that, was like, holy cow, we need a house, we need this, we need that. But he's right. It was where our hearts were at. And we found that it doesn't matter who you are or where you are. Most people want the same things. They want to feel successful. They want to be loved. They'd like a little less drama. And they want to be left alone to love the people that they made or their kids or whatever. And the folks that we took care of had the same goals. And it really was a simple time. and a simplistic world where the littlest things could cause such joy. Drawing a picture was cause for a celebration. For somebody who that might be the biggest thing they did during the day was made a beautiful picture.
Oh, we had our kids growing
amazing.
up.
Plus we had our children
we
as well.
couldn't have been any happier. We're sitting in the house we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
This is the house we're talking about that we ended up with when we got these folks.
You told them.
And so we'll talk more about it.
We'll
later.
continue on. So with that, we'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm. And let us know if you want to see more.
Yeah.
Thanks. Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans. Mm-hmm. So this week, sharing with you about a situation we had mentioned that one time when we were back in Texas, we had met a man named Lin Vo. And I wanted to leave a link at the end of this number 12 to a site called gratitude.org. A lot of people have commented on and felt like, what about wars that are of course, nobody wants war and they're unpopular. And you look back and why did we do this? Why did we do that? And all these things. But the goal at the end of each episode is to bring you something that could provide some hope, encouragement, or healing. And I just wanted to let you know, and we spoke with him the other day, there's an amazing human being who is South Vietnamese, and his name is Lin Vo. And you can see his things at gratitude.org, but I want to read you just a tiny bit. This is a young man who was airlifted off of the roof of a Saigon location. He was a student in Saigon, and when his village got run over by the Viet Cong, he did not know if his family members had survived. He was young. He had a split-second decision. He was invited to come to America. He did. He finished growing up, went to school. He worked at, I think it was Rancho Cucamonga, but I want to read you something. He was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for a poetry book that was dedicated to the helicopter pilot that he knew. This is at the end of his book called Dear Daddy. And he says, my note of thanksgiving. He said, for 20 years living in America till this date, I've not returned to Vietnam at the time of this book. His 20th Thanksgiving, 1995, is approaching while I'm writing this note. The note of thanks of deep gratitude and love for all who have created a unique America, for all who are her safekeeping. This talks about the year we met him. On the 4th of July of this year, I was invited by a Vietnam vet to attend the 12th annual convention of the Vietnam helicopter pilots. And long story short, the book was dedicated to a helicopter pilot who flew in countless battles in the Vietnam War. Like millions of other Americans who left home for a small place afar to fight for precious freedom, he ended up literally dying there. And this man made Lin feel deeply moved, and so he ended up dedicating this book to him. But he talks about a trip that he made to the wall, which you can see behind us in most of our series. And he had made a pilgrimage to the wall and left a poem there. And he says, I want you to know something. I am a baby son of my long-lost papa sons, the Vietnam vet whose hair now has turned much gray. And so he goes on to share in his book that he himself carries flashbacks. His grandfather was murdered by the VC, shot. He had a gun held to his head. And, a lot of times you don't think of the refugees or the people left. I know those of you that have been in Iraq and Afghanistan and things you've seen, things you've been through. But this man has earned literally being called the living, breathing Vietnam Memorial. And so we wanted to honor him. We've invited him to share here, but sharing his story personally is not easy. He does it through his poetry. But if any of you have wondered, could anything redeeming have come out of the Vietnam War, no matter what you feel about the politics, I just want you to know that we had the privilege of meeting a man who said, without you, I am the baby that the blood was shed for. He grew up here. His kids went to Stanford. And as you know, we have lots of Vietnamese communities, Thai, Laotian, Hmong, from all the Asian countries through the different things that they went through. And so I was just hoping that on this Veterans Day, that as you think about going forward, that if you haven't had a chance to have someone say thank you or hear the other side of the story besides why it wasn't right or popular politically, that war, to hear from someone who you made the difference. This is somebody whose children's children are now helping in America and are very grateful they're here. So that's what I wanted to share. And we'll make sure and put links to his, I know he's got gratitude.org, I don't know, website, whatever, but you can get his information and read his poetry.